Hello and welcome to our second episode of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is July 24th, and together with Robert and Goran, I'm here to talk about anything related to SAP on Azure. After our first episode a week ago, we have today three main topics. The first one is obviously about the Microsoft Ignite event that just happened this week. Then we quickly want to talk about an event that happened, or a session that happened also this week between ASUG and DSAG, so the two SAP user communities. And finally, we want to quickly take a look at an SAP General update from one of our colleagues, a blog that he's posting. So welcome, everyone.
Yep, welcome.
Welcome.
Good. So the first thing is Ignite. Robert, Goran, did you have time to watch some of the sessions from Ignite?
Yeah, that's part two, of course, and it was requirements for us. Yeah, because I'm coming from a partner organization, so we must be there. But I received already some feedback from a partner, and some partner is interesting. Most of the partner feedback is positive. That's very good. They are missing a little bit more technical stuff, but from my perspective, I think the attention from our side, also from Microsoft side, was really on this empathy side. Yeah, that we understand that our community, our partners are also dealing with very difficult situations, that we all need to somehow switch the gears and then go in some other directions to adopt our businesses. And I think Complete Ignite was somehow in that direction from empathy perspective. There was very strong, message that we are together with partners, that we are together with customers, and I like that. I think this is very important, those crazy times. And of course, there's some list of news and some, of course, presentation from our techies guys from Redmond. I think all in all, it was okay, like a first digital version of yes. Vegas, so to say. I find it very good.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, in addition to the empathy, obviously a lot of announcements also happened. And what I really like, and I'm not sure if this is new, I think it was there already last year, but there's this book of news, which I think is a really nice concept. And I've the URL already opened, where we are summarizing some of the highlights, the main topics from Inspire. So obviously the content is all still there. So all the recordings of the sessions are accessible. But here in this book of news, you basically get a summary of most or all the important announcements.
Yeah, we had that also last year, as Frank on this introduction window mentioned that we are always trying with new format. Yeah, and I mean, this is a list of announcements. Yeah, actually, so general availability services, that's very interesting. Also, maybe not so directly connected to SAP, but I mean, SAP is big chunk of services and opportunities to integrate with Azure. So there's still some very interesting services there. I mean, you are now currently on Azure Stack family, and here's CI as a offer. I'm not so deep in that part, but Azure Stack is actually part of our Edge family. This is appliances we are currently together building with our partners. We already have all Edge Stack, I think 4 or 5 years old probably. But now we have Azure Stack, we have Azure Stack Edge, then we have Azure Stack HCI and Azure Stack Hub. I think it's 3 categories. Yeah, and this is our new offering what we have. And as you mentioned, as you see below, we are working with our hardware partners like Dell, EMC, HP, and Lenovo.
Yeah, and just for those of you who are not aware, like you said, this is all about our hybrid offering.
Exactly.
So really to make sure that customers that cannot, for whatever reason, use the cloud services of Azure, that they can really take an appliance from one of these partners, install or put it in their data center, and then still use services from Azure, but really under their control in their data center, and that's the beautiful thing. Still controllable or accessible with the same APIs from within the same Azure portal, so that you have then potentially services that really are native cloud services, really hosted out of one of our regions, and then also services that really run in your data center.
I will, I will try to be very careful how to explain that the customer who are not able to use our service. I will go that in scenario, for example, customer which need to be sometimes disconnected, yeah, Yep. And they are not able to use the Azure services all the time, and Azure Stack like edge scenario is very good for that. Or customers which cannot use some of the services all the time, like classical IoT scenario where you don't want to connect your machine directly with cloud services because of latency and so on and so on. So there's also many edge scenarios where a customer want to have some hardware, let's say hardware on a premise, but they would like to use the same family of services as you mentioned, same family of APIs, which are same as on Azure. So also investment in the development, investment in complete Azure knowledge is not just somehow separate between two offers. It is the same. It's same message. It's just edge scenario and full-blown Azure platform, like a cloud offering.
And that's for me really one of the most beautiful things. When you deploy something in Azure, you always specify this location. I want to deploy to region North Europe or Western Europe or US2 or whatever. And with Azure Stack, you just say, well, I want to deploy to the Azure Stack that is sitting in my data center, and the rest of the API call is basically the same, just the location changes.
Unfortunately, and you could have a different location as well for the Azure Stack, your own.
Yeah, of course.
Site.
Yeah. But I mean, I always try to stress that this edge scenario. I mean, it's very difficult to explain because there's the different options different possibility how to explain these edge scenarios. But I mean, the main message is that Azure Stack is not replacement from on-premise private data centers. Yeah? This is not just simply, okay, now I will have my private Azure. I mean, Azure Stack is full plow blown. There's a huge set of offering there and a huge set of services, of course. But the idea is just to cover these edge scenarios. And for example, currently is not yet a certificate for SAP, any kind of SAP load.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Unfortunately, it's not. Well, you could argue whether it makes sense or not, but the fact is, it's not.
I mean, there's always, we bring that on the topic, then it's going down, and we again bring it on the topic. I hope that probably in the future we will have some pressure from customer side, and maybe we'll just work with SAP to certificate some Azure Stack offering. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, we will see.
Then this is a huge list, and we will not go through the whole list of announcement. I just want to, because last week we already talked about the shared disks, so I think that is something interesting. Then if we scroll down, Robert, I think
there's also actually Azure Blob Storage and NFS. This is very nice. I like that because I mean this is also not currently going in direction of anything to do with SAP, but I think it's opening some door with synchronization from NFS storages from on-premise in direction of the cloud. So we can use NFS to synchronize that much more easier. And I think probably in the beginning we will have gain some functionality from that offering. For example, for some complex SAP scenarios like SAP Mount Share, where we can maybe host something, host those shares on our Azure file services or blob services and so on. I think I like that because it's simply going direction, nice direction where we can more and more use those services in our SAP landscapes.
Yeah. So again, I think we can just recommend take a look at this book of news. We don't want to spend too much time. There's really a ton of information. Obviously, I just stayed here with Teams. There are a lot of announcements also around Teams. There's the premium Teams Room premium service now available. There's also an announcement that we open up Teams now for partner applications, so that even within a meeting you can embed this. So it's really a huge list, and it's really nice collected. So I think it's definitely worth checking this out and spending some time on all the topics that are available in this list.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Then switching topics. I think just yesterday actually there was a webinar from DSAG and ASUG, so the two I think biggest SAP user groups available. So the German speaking and the US American speaking user group. And unfortunately, I could only find this public link in German right now. I'm sure there's also a link on ASUG that talks about this, but I thought it was pretty interesting because I think for the very first time ASUG and DSAG joined forces and they interviewed their customers, or they sent a survey to their customers. And again, there's the full recording is available, so you can just go there to the ASUG website, and some of the slides are also here. But some of the questions were around, well, how is the S/4HANA adoption going? And for me, that was interesting. So both in the US and Germany, we are almost the same. So customers are saying, well, they are adopting S/4HANA, but also they said that a few of them are really also struggling. You can see this here with the costs, the missing business case, their current ECC projects. So there's also some reservations. I think in general, customers are willing to go to S/4HANA, but they're still, at least to some extent, struggling with some of the business cases.
Do you have English version of that? Because you're showing the German version.
I know. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the English version.
Okay. Okay.
But maybe when we put down the link, or when we publish the video, or maybe.
Someone will.
Robert, you're a wizard with Google and with Bing. Maybe you can find something in the meantime.
Yeah, okay.
The other interesting thing was SAP Fiori. That's also something that I found quite interesting. So over half of the members or the customers now answered that they are using SAP Fiori, that they're familiar. Similarly on the ASUG and the DSAG side. So I think you can clearly see that SAP Fiori is picking up, that it's getting more and more relevant. The SAP Analytics Cloud, is interesting, but I think the adoption is not yet perfect. But what they're also saying is that the possibility to do predictions is something that is really getting interesting.
Yeah.
So not only the BI side, the reporting side, but really also the possibility then to use the data to do predictions going forward. And there are a lot of more details. And again, this is a 1-hour webinar. You can just log on and take a look at this. But I think it's really interesting to really hear from the customers what they're thinking right now about SAP, the way forward. Oh, the innovation obviously was another interesting topic. So how SAP integrates to third-party applications and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting webinar, I would say.
Okay, great.
Nice.
Good. And the last topic that we want to cover today is our colleague Cameron has published.
I mean, I need to first say, I need to really that all kudos get on camera side, because he's always trying to make this updates per month. I mean, it looked like a big list, but it's huge effort. I mean, it's really respect that camera have the nerves to collect all the stuff, and it's very nice overview of really all important information in direction of SAP and Azure, not just in relation to HANA, also for any DB perspective. Yeah. And he's really tried to collect everything in one blog.
So maybe it would be also interesting to mention that this is an SAP on Azure. I believe it's an Azure blog, which is on a Microsoft side or on Microsoft platform, how it's called. Maybe not all people are aware, but it's really it's one very popular place, and maybe not everybody are aware that this exists. So there's a lot of good stuff there.
Okay,
so
we'll put the link below.
Yeah.
And like you said, Robert, Cameron is doing regular updates on this, and they're really always a wealth of information. So we thought it might be good to quickly take a look at this latest version, because it just was released last week. I mean, we talked already, we talked already about the new virtual machines that are available. But then if you scroll down, there's really a lot of additional information there, like the availability zones that you can now see, the zones that your virtual machines are available, where you can deploy them. Then the whole multi-SID clustering that is now available with the new fencing agents for SUSE.
So I would say maybe this is interesting because multi-SID on central service is always a kind of business use case, is consolidation and cost reduction. You put multiple SID on one cluster. So you reduce the price, you reduce the management, you manage less. And interesting is that now this fencing agent, it's, I mean, on a SUSE you need a kind of 3 VMs to do the fencing, playing a role of a kind of iSCSI target. And on Red Hat, they had integration with Azure. I mean, with SUSE, there was an integration with Azure, but it was fencing was slow. So now they got it right. They got it much faster, meaning we use, again, what Robert said, a cloud service, which helps kind of to simplify the whole management and operation and reduce the cost on the end.
And this blog is one very interesting part. If you scroll down, I think it's related to Azure storage, and I don't know where exactly, but it's actually the camera referred to our experience with small disk for operating system. You know, in most cases when we are doing the sizing, we say, okay, P6 is enough for operating system and so on and so on. But you know, P6 is actually a very small for throughput perspective, in IOPS perspective, and exactly this number 5, I think, number 5, where he recommended if we are not sure about that part, what is mentioned here, that maybe P6 is very critical, maybe it's better that we go to P15 or higher. Because throughput and IOPS on that size are much bigger, and then we'll not have a issue with booting or operating system and so on. This is a very interesting point. I mean, it's I think for me this is a very clear sign that when we are building something in Azure, we are not building something fixed. We need to somehow test and see what is the best fit for us. And also, of course, this will help us also to polish our pricing on the end. So this is a moving target. So we need to be aware of that. We need to monitor and then react, modify our landscape in a way what.
But maybe here, I think Cameron didn't mention, but he was talking about the premium storage for the boot disk for the performance. Yes, but also with the premium, with those smaller disk, you by default will be enabled this bursting. This is one really wonderful use case, because you need it for fast starting of the VM, so that would definitely make sense, and it's kind of something which is predictable and helpful. And these are typically smaller, this is typically smaller, so bursting would be definitely of a huge benefit here as well, in addition to the
And I think, Goran, you made a very good point, because this is just good example that we shouldn't just take this blog as is, because it's constantly something changing. So this is a nice overview, but be careful. Always need to be sure. Maybe something changed in between, or maybe some other services are improved and which are related to some other services. So, I mean, as always, it's not so simple, but it's nice overview what is happening in last month.
Absolutely.
So just take from there and just do your research and continue with.
The only constant in cloud is change, right?
And I think when we are, I think only on the end. Regarding this E-series, I receive many questions from our partners that because I think this is not so easy to understand, because it's deep in our documentation. When we are talking about why E-series need to have a log on the log disk, why they need to have ultra storage. Yeah, because the story about why we don't need that on M-series, because M-series have functionality so-called writing accelerator, and this is only available for M-series. There's no that functionality on E-series, and we use that functionality to improve that, actually to satisfy requirements for SAP for this below 1 milliseconds requirements for log disk. For A disk, we don't have that functionality, and because of that reason, we need to use ultra, because ultra disk storage is by default below 1 millisecond. So sometimes this is confusing why we need to use ultra for ultra disk for E-series, but not for M-series. Yeah, but I mean, this is just a reason behind that, because we don't have this writing accelerator on E-series. So this is the reason why we need to use that.
Great.
Perfect. Yeah. Good. I think
today.
With this.
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss next 3 millennium if you want, but but let's keep something for next time.
Exactly. I think in the spirit of keeping this short, we covered 3 topics. I hope we were able to give a quick overview. Please again let us know if there are other things, and we already collected some of new ideas about Azure Backup, which we could cover in the future. And I think there were a few other questions also to you, Goran, to really dig deeper in the whole shared disk and HA setup. So I think at some point we'll definitely also talk about this. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time again.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.